Hello, I'm Darrell Gunter, your host for Leadership Begins With You on WSOU 89.5 FM, streaming on the net at WSOU.net, and I'm on every podcast channel you can think of. Today, I'm so pleased to have a dear friend and president of the CODiE Awards, Miss Jenny Baranowski. Did I say your name correctly, Jenny?
You did. You crushed it.
Good, good. She's our in-studio guest. So, welcome to another episode of Leadership with me. I'm your host, Darrell Gunter, and today we're shining a spotlight on one of the most respected honors in technology world, the CODiE Awards. Since 1986, the CODiE Awards have celebrated excellence and innovation in software and information industries, recognizing the tools, platforms, and people shaping the future of tech. I'm thrilled to be joined by Jenny, the newly appointed president of the CODiE Awards. Jenny brings a wealth of experience in program management, marketing, and business development, and she's leading the CODiEs into an exciting new era. With over 100 award categories and a bold commitment to highlighting groundbreaking startups through the new CODiE Breakers initiative. We'll talk about the evolution of the award and what makes a winner stand out, and the powerful role recognition plays in fueling innovation. Jenny, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for the warm introduction. It's great to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you on. As you know, the CODiEs have played a significant role in the development of not many, of thousands of companies over the last 40 years. Before we jump into the CODiE Awards, can you share a little bit about your education background, and then we'll talk about your vision for the CODiEs.
Yeah, sure. So, a little about me and kind of my career journey. I actually started thinking I was going to save the world and go straight into nonprofits, and actually did AmeriCorps, believe it or not, right out of college. I went to the University of Minnesota, go Gophs. Um, and I focused on microfinance. And while, being at a trade association, because that was the organization I was paired with, I was working with thought leaders that were really focused on helping small business and entrepreneurship. And being in that association setting was really interesting to me because it really fostered and brought people together around ideas that they were really passionate about. So, while I didn't stay in microfinance, I ended up going to a tech association, which is how you and I met a long time ago. I won't say how many decades. And while the what I was specifically working on was different, the content was different, the people were different that I was working with, but the through line was really coming together, bringing really smart, passionate people together to work together around, new thought leadership ideas, or how to make their businesses stronger, or what the future of industries look like, and really thinking through how to get people together in a creative environment. So we did that through a lot of, workshops and small business meetings and things like that, where we came together in person because this was before Zoom. But also we did big conferences and brought people together via boards, and also did a lot of policy and outreach efforts. So that's kind of the, big story. And then as part of that tech association, there was always this really fun program called the CODiE Awards. And it really brought all of the different, you know, product leaders and marketers together to really celebrate these really cool technologies that were out there that, were on the market. And I would always work on the CODiE Awards, from my specific angle. At that time, I was working with content companies, content technology companies, software companies, and really it allowed me to work with companies across the technology landscape. And I was like, well, that's a cool job. And did some finagling and worked with our president of the association at the time, and ended up going into that role. and loved it. Absolutely loved it, and was able to work with several companies over time. And then I took a brief stint where I went to higher ed to kind of get back to my nonprofit roots, and then really missed it. So here I am. I'm back and running this now with the original founder, which is super, super fun and exciting. And it's great that I get to reconnect with people again.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's tremendous. You are the face of the CODiEs as far as I'm concerned. You've always been very enthusiastic, and the awards program where they would be presented, it was just so refreshing to see the entrepreneurs and the companies who had been around for a while,
Yeah.
decided that their peers had voted them to have the CODiE Award in their category. So now that you're the president of the CODiEs, um, give us some insight on some of the exciting things that you have planned for the CODiEs.
Yeah, well, so the one thing that's interesting about the CODiE Awards is, the through line is always, focusing on excellent in technology and really celebrating those innovations. So while, that looked very different 40 years ago, I mean, the internet wasn't even a thing really. So some of the categories were like best sound and like best use of a computer. So we're talking wildly different things. But what I want to do is really get back to what categories are currently what are we offering up for categories? And we expanded a number of them this year, which we can go into. But also, how do we get this community to really come together and incorporate more of those thought leadership pieces, knowing that we're a global, it's a global awards program. So we're talking different time zones, and it's really difficult to get people together in person. So what does that look like? And that's where, I'm tapping on people far smarter than I am to work together and give you ideas on what they want to see, like what would help them with their careers and with, what they're working on. So that's what I'm really focused on, is really making sure that we have as many people in technology participating in this in different capacities, whether it's as a judge, whether they're supporting the program financially, whether they're nominating, to make sure we have, or as advisors, we need lots of advisors to help us. So that's really where I'm focused over at least the next few years.
Right, right. And so with 100 categories, how many judges do you need to have?
Yeah, so we have thousands of judges that apply every year, and they really, because there's such a wide variety of products and or categories that we offer up, we need judges that match those skill sets. So we have a lot, especially in our education technology categories, we have a lot of like educators and administrators, people that have been working in ed tech for a while. They can really look at these various products and understand the core of what their problem they're trying to solve and how well their product works to accomplish that. So, we have people very focused on that space. In development, we have a lot of, software development categories. We want really technical engineers that know how this works. I don't know how it works, but thankfully they do, and they help us really make sure that we're judging the right, using the right lens, helping us develop these really specific category rubrics. So all of the scoring is done, on a even scale. So, we're for every single year, we need at least 500 judges to review. So that's where it's really awesome to have so many people volunteer to spend, a few hours every year with this program, really to look at each of the entries that they're assigned, make sure that they're scoring, the best that they can, and giving as much feedback as they can. Because, it's great for the reviewers, because they're able to kind of see what's fresh on the market. That, they're probably head down in a very specific area working on their own products or for their own companies. But it gives them a chance to really provide feedback on a broader scale and then also know that they're part of a much larger community like this, where, you know, they're, we really need that thought leadership to help us see kind of what's coming up next.
And so, from your perspective, outside of having a judge to have the domain knowledge, what are some of the key characteristics that, so someone is wondering, well, I got the domain knowledge. What other characteristics are important for a to be a CODiE judge?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to have a business acumen. So I love like MBAs, people that have that business background. I love, having consultants and reporters, people that are writing up interesting pieces on technology. Those are all really important because they tend to know what the problem is. They can identify the problem. They can identify how this specific technology is working to solve that problem. And they also have enough of a technical background to understand what the use of the tool is and kind of they have the past history of what, previous tools they've used to be like, oh, this is a great, UI that makes it very intuitive for me to get to the next step, or, this gives me a reporting feature that I've never seen before that makes sense, and I can use this to sell, X, Y, and Z to my customer or, my boss or whatever it may be, my board. And so having that business background is really helpful because they can really see kind of the big picture and go big to, more granular.
And so as you mentioned, the CODiE was founded by Ken Walsh, I believe back in 1986. How
Yeah.
has the mission evolved over time, or is it still pretty true to the mission that it established back then?
Yeah, I mean, the mission has kind of always remained the same, and that's to honor the best technology on the market. And so while the product has changed significantly, as I had touched on before with, the early day categories, I mean, they're actually kind of fun. They're listed on our website to see like what was out there at the time and what the big ideas were at that time. Now some of them seem, silly. Like we have, best use of like www. I mean, we don't even use the www anymore.
Right, right.
But th those were really big new things at the time. And so really, and Ken would say the same thing that, we always just want to be honoring what's the best right now and in the future and try and get this great community together to really identify what's next and, what can we expect to see and what is so clearly ahead of the game. And so that's one thing that's remained true. And the other thing that's remained true is the peer-reviewed element of this. So, I get a lot of questions about, like what sets this apart from other award programs. And there's a lot of things, but the primary one is that every single entry is assigned two of those expert reviewers to do a 1 hour or up to 1 hour demo on what the product does. So someone's actually looking at your product, they're actually giving you feedback. And, a lot of the nominees end up using that feedback to provide to their product team, to provide to their sales team, because there's an amazing quote about someone, being completely wowed by a new feature that they have that they can use in, when they're sharing their story to their customers and things like that. So there's a lot of things like that it becomes so much more than just the trophy. It's the process. Like it's the journey, not the destination.
Wow, 103 categories and 43 new ones have been added, if
Yes.
my research is correct. So what drove the expansion?
Yeah, so I mean, every year, like I mentioned, we get a number of people together to just share what they're seeing and what they think would be good to add. In the same vein, we also remove categories. Like, we don't have the same categories that we did 10 years ago because the technology is dated.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, I mean, we've all been there, and it was hot at the time. Um, and so with these categories, we know that there will be some that just are, it's too far. Like, we aren't there yet, and that's okay. We take them out or we revise them for the next year. But we really wanted to make sure that we had enough in there to really show, like, hey, we have all these a number of companies that are applying to judge and things like that we don't necessarily have categories for them, like for the software development ones. So what can we do to do that? So we added a number of categories that, are there to honor those companies' work and really help us build the, pipes, lay the foundation for a lot of these really cool products.
Wow.
So, looking at that and then looking at, okay, here we have AI is, has been the word of the year since,
Right.
last year. And, how are companies not only using it to expand on what they're doing already, but really how they're using AI to really enhance the user experience, like the emotional intelligence piece and, the ethics behind the use. We see that a lot with like our cybersecurity and things like that. So really, trying to find as many of those products as possible and making sure that we have the categories for them is just really important. So yes, it's a lot. It is a lot to read through too for nominees, but that's the whole kind of methodology behind it.
Absolutely. So, tell us more about the Cody Breakers. How are
Yeah.
you supporting startups and companies that are under $1 million in revenue?
Yeah. So I mean, innovation has been a big part of this awards program for a long time. And we noticed that, we do have a lot of startups that enter, but, ones that are really, really fresh and just getting started were stressed about money and time. And so for these CODiE breaker categories, we were able to have an incredible partner and sponsor that is helping alleviate some of the financial burden of entering into an awards program by financially supporting those categories. So um, to that, we have five different buckets this year for innovative startup companies to enter. And, it's really fun for me to see what these entries are looking like because they're really all across the board and very focused on, solving a specific problem. And, my hope is that, these little companies that are just starting off, they become big companies. We've seen that over the, 4 decades that this program has been around. And so it's really fun to kind of see that journey. And
For companies like Colexis that get acquired right after they get the code.
exactly. Yes, and so that's also really fun for me to see because, they're so excited and we're able to join in on the celebration of it and really feel like, you're excited. It's like part of the family. And so being able to better foster that and, with the categories in the Cody Breakers this year, we're actually providing mentorship too for the companies that want it, should they win. And it's really nice to just have another voice to just kind of bounce ideas off of or ask questions like, where would you go to for this particular thing? Or, do you have a recommendation for that to solve this problem? Or what would you do with this, HR issue or whatever it may be? And it's nice to have kind of someone in your court that's signing up to be there. I know I had several people like that help me, and so to have some that support kind of built into the process, I think is really cool.
Wow. And I've always found the CODiE Awards to be so really above the board. And so, someone who's new to the process, how does the rigorous judging process ensure fairness, relevance, credibility, and consistency?
Yeah, so I mean that is really important to both myself and the founder, Ken Wash. Um, we we want it to be super transparent. I mean, selfishly, it makes my life a lot easier because like that's the process. I'm not changing it. It's always been that way. So there's no funny business. We have a clear rubric. There all of the accounting and things like that is done through a third party. Everyone, I tell every single person who nominates exactly what the evaluation criteria is that they're being evaluated on so they can craft their demos to make sure that they're at least hitting the mark. You don't want to
Equals
do a
no,
sales pitch
right?
that's it's not gonna float well. So, making sure that I set people up for success and also show them exactly what to expect. I mean, it's like going into an interview and knowing what all the interview questions are. That makes you feel good and you're in a good spot. And as long as you can really tell your story and stick with the script, and show examples of how you're excelling in certain areas, I mean, that's going to be compelling to anyone who reviews. And so that's where it's really important for us. I mean, I wouldn't be part of this if it were not rigorous. Like that's not very fun and
Right.
not very interesting. So I would say that's by far the biggest important piece for me and how we do it.
Well, we're now in this AI age, as you said,
Yeah.
if we had a penny for every time the word AI is said, we would
I
all
mean,
be
I'd be in a much better financial position than I am.
exactly. But how do you ensure that the CODiEs keep pace with this fast changing tech, AI, cybersecurity, blockchain, ed tech, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to the community piece. I mean, I really am tapping on all of the people that have been part of this for a long time to to ask them what they're seeing. Like, and that story changes all the time. So, I'll just poll our advisors or our judges or the nominees and be like, hey, what are some interesting categories that you want to see? Like what new technologies are out there? And, having that community as a resource is so important. And I think that that's one of the things that also draws people back to volunteering their time or nominating multiple years in a row, is being able to be part of that conversation as well.
Wow. Winning a CODiE Award meant so much to Calexis, myself,
Yeah.
all the other winners. For someone who's new to understanding the CODiEs, can you give them a good idea about the benefits of not only applying but potentially winning a CODiE Award?
Yeah, no, of course. So I mean, I'll walk you through the whole process. So for even nominating for a CODiE award, like I mentioned, you are guaranteed demo time with judges. I mean, some people choose to do a recorded demo, and that's fine too. You can still see that the judges are reviewing those demos. They're, scoring across the set rubric. But even in that nomination part, it forces you to kind of benchmark where you're at, make sure your story is super, super clear. you should be able to tell your grandma what you do. And she's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So taking a moment to kind of pause and do that and work with, your team and tell folks that you're up for an award is huge. And we provide a bunch of resources to, if you decide you want to share that you're up for a nomination, we of course do a toolkit for all nominees that allow them to, it makes that a little bit easier for them. And then we of course provide all the feedback from the demos to the nominees. So even if they don't advance to the finalist round, they at least have that feedback that they can, if any of it's really favorable, which a lot of times it is, not always, but a lot of times it is. They can use that and they can share it with their team. They can share quotes, as I mentioned. And so that's a really nice value add. For the finalist round, we provide finalists with finalist logos. They can put it on their websites. They can put it in their pitch decks. We have different media pieces that they're welcome to use. So we kind of make all of that really easy to spread the word, if you would. And of course, everyone, tweaks to their own company style and voice, but it's good to at least kind of have a game plan. So we do that. And we also provide kind of video assets. We've partnered with a really cool company that allows people to share their testimonials on, what their company does and why they're up for an award and all of that, which is really fun. And it's great to have additional voices out there. And then for the winners, we do the same thing and, of course, put out a big press release and encourage people to put out their own press releases as well. Again, to really, share with their broader community that they've been named the best in what they do, which is a huge accomplishment, especially with so many different technologies out there.
Wow. Believe it or not, we're coming to the end of the interview, and I want to make sure I get,
What?
like, I know time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Right. How can someone apply for the
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question because we did officially close the nomination period on Friday, but as a little, you know, just for this community, I will keep the nomination portal open. And so that can be accessed to or on the CODiE Award website, which is codieaward.com or codieawards.com. And there's a little nomination field, and you just click on that, and you'll see a nomination portal. So that will remain accessible until July 8th at the very latest. So there's not much time because we're working hard behind the scenes to make sure that we pair all those judges with the nominees that have already started. So we want to make sure that we get the process going so people can start getting excited about sharing their story. But that is available. And then, of course, people can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to help.
and how can they contact you?
Yeah, I would say send me an email and I mean it's J my last name, Baranowski at CODiEawards.com. And I'm happy to help. We also have a info at CODiEawards.com that's listed on our website and people can just submit a form there. So there's lots of ways to reach out in case you're worried about misspelling this long last name that I have. That's an easy way to get to me too.
Any last words you want to leave with our guests about?
No, I'm so glad we did this, and thank you for creating this platform and allowing me on the show. I really appreciate it. It was great to see you and chat with you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Jenny. And ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up this week on Leadership Begins with You. We're here with Miss Jennifer, but I call her Jenny, Baranowski,
Yes.
president of the CODiE Awards. Thank you for coming on today, Jenny.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Right. Folks, let's have a great day, great week. But remember, leadership begins with you.